In other developments, the United Nations Development Programme and Yaga Africa has launched a project aimed at mobilizing 60% of eligible young voters to register, collect their permanent voters card and vote in the 2023 elections. The target is meant to be achieved through the use of traditional and non-traditional tools of political mobilization. This was disclosed on Friday in Abuja, and Benedict Uko has more on this story.
According to a report, every year an estimated 4.5 to 5 million Nigerians turns 18, which translates to a huge number of new voters over the years. In order to leverage these large numbers, the United Nations Development Programme and Yaga Africa has launched a project 60% of Us to mobilize, register at least 60% young Nigerians to vote in the 2023 elections. The Executive Director Yaga Africa, Samson Itodo, explained the technology in the electoral process.
This project is actually built on a study that the Yaga Africa conducted from the 2019 elections on the turnout for the elections, because we're interrogating, what the key drivers for low turnout at elections. And it might interest you to know that a lot of them isn't about the distrust in the system. That a lot of one of the major factors why people aren't turning up to vote is because of the failure of governance to deliver the promise of democracy. What we've seen, there's an exponential growth in the number of initiatives that are targeted at, mobilizing voters. And we recognize those initiatives. And to the point Abbas was making, this is a complementary project. It seeks to complement what already exists. We're not doing something new, and it's not isolated from the other interventions by different organizations. And as you can see, we're even trying to support more people. So whether they are campus outreaches and engagements, those will still go on. There are different partners who are doing that. We are complementing that. And to also mention that we're also in conversation with other organizations who are implementing these kinds of activities.
The UNDP Nigeria resident representative, Mohamed Yahya, who laid emphasis on meeting the UN development goals, urged the Nigerian government to consider more women participation in politics.
And I think there's a recognition, even of all the leaders I've engaged in Nigeria, that more needs to be done on political parties, but also on women's representation. This is extremely important. No country will ever prosper. Nigeria will never reach its potential if half of its population are not in the decision making. It's not only about voting. It's about women being in parliament, women being in government, women being in captains of industry, and etc. So from a UN side and UNDP specifically, the issue of women's political participation and economic participation is the critical ingredient for Nigeria to meet sustainable development goals in 2030. So for us, this is a huge issue. So that's why part of the partnership we have with Yaga Africa and others is around women's political participation. We're engaging very forcefully with government and the police to see what can be done to be able to secure the election.
Nigerian musician Jide Abaga, popularly known as MI, also disclosed how he will mobilize youth through entertainment.
I prefer the latter. I prefer for all young people to get involved. And so with the other partners that are here, I wouldn't speak to them at all. What we are trying to do is to bring the creatives, to bring the influencers, the comedians, the singers, the actors, and get them to use their platform as loud as they can. We're doing so again in a group. It's like a pilgrimage of many amazing organizations, but we have a chance next year. And what we can do is collectively get young people excited about the opportunity they have, about their responsibility, get them to understand that the process can work if they get involved.
The director of programs, Cynthia Mbamalu, lent her voice to the affirmative order and how the launch will help in active participation of women in politics.
Under the 60% of us, we mentioned there's a women and Godeshi votes. And the idea is to work with women initiatives to mobilize women to register and vote. Because we also want a lot of women to not just register, but to vote and begin to determine the outcome of the elections. So 60% of us is about young men, is about young women, is about young persons with disability. Is as inclusive as it gets. And there's a special project dedicated to just targeting women, because the project, UNDP, Yaga Africa and our partners, we are very biased and sentimental about women participation, and we will invest everything possible to not just get women to vote, but to also support initiatives that target supporting women candidacy, for parties and candidates to give us the agenda, because we want parties that would uphold the court's decision to ensure affirmative action in appointments when they come into power.
Young people play a critical role in democracy, and the launch provided an opportunity for young people to determine the next set of leaders for the country through their active participation.
However,